Good afternoon and welcome to Rabbit Hole Roundtable Talks, the show where we take a topic and we deep dive into it. Today I'm joined by my co-host as always, Mino, and we have the lovely Amaranth 13 as well.
Why'd you have to think about it?
I didn't want to say anything that was too forward. How you guys doing today?
Yes. I'll let Amaranth
Mhm.
go first. How are you doing today,
Oh,
Amaranth?
I'm doing okay. Yeah.
Well, guys, I am doing great.
Oh my gosh.
I went out last night with the guys and the girl. I'm not gonna call no names, and we had a good time.
Oh my gosh.
And now I'm drinking my electrolyte water. Today's gonna be a good day because we're gonna be talking about dating in other cultures. And oh, I should probably give a little background. So Amaranth and I know each other from way back, and she used to live in Japan. She also had a podcast while she was in Japan. And today we're pretty much going to explore topics around this subject. So we're probably going to talk about some dating, talk about podcasting, and talk about dating in other cultures, especially since Wanted and I are from the Caribbean and we have different experiences back home versus living in the United States.
Good. So Amaranth, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about your podcast and a little bit about your experiences in Japan?
Yeah. Um, so I'm originally from Illinois. Not that that really matters because the internet is an international place. But so American Midwestern background. But my family is also from Sierra Leone, so kind of got a multicultural um upbringing. Uh yeah, I have lived in several different places, I guess, and traveled all over the world. And yeah, I ended up spending 2 years in Japan as an English teacher and learned a lot of things, saw a lot of things. So, yeah.
Nice, nice.
Nice.
So what was your
Can you?
podcast? Sorry,
Oh,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, bro.
No, you go ahead. You started.
I was actually going to ask if you speak several languages or do you just speak like bits and pieces here and there, or are you fluent in any?
I wouldn't call myself fluent in any language, really. Barely even English, because like there's just too much going on.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I have studied French, German, Japanese, and Korean.
Oh,
Um, and I am conversational, at least in Japanese and Korean. Um, and I can still understand German. I'm pretty bad at speaking it though. And French, I can't really speak at all, but I can, if like given a lot of time, I can kind of remember stuff.
mhm.
And then I guess I kind of understand a lot of like English based Creoles.
Mm,
So
Nice.
good stuff.
mm,
So
So
you're
what's
asking her about her podcast.
yeah, I was gonna ask about your podcast. So that's what it was. How long did it run for? And what things you talked about?
yeah. Well, my podcast was called Coquettish, I believe. um, and so it was basically just about Black sexuality and dating in Japan. And then when I got back to the States, just kind of even opened it broader
Mm,
to like just being Black and what that means and like the Pan African heritage and things like that. But it actually kind of ran for a pretty short time. Um, I want to say it was mostly about maybe 6 months in earnest.
Mhm.
It just was very time consuming and a little bit difficult to get people to interview.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and in the end, like I didn't have anybody to help with production or editing and things like that. So it was all left on me. And once I started working back in the States, it just
Mhm.
was too time consuming.
Gotcha.
Mm,
Yeah.
I understand that.
yeah. We have a producer. He does literally everything, and it's not me.
Yeah, well, it's not that bad so far. It's just editing is probably the most time consuming thing to do because I have to do video and audio. So I understand you have to listen to your podcast all over again to either find like the juicy moments or to like take out things that you probably don't want out there.
Yeah.
So I understand that.
Yeah. So, by the way, anybody in the audience, he literally just said sometimes we cut stuff out because oftentimes I say, well, it's usually me. I say something that shouldn't be said, and then we have to cut it out. So if you want to catch all the juicy stuff, you have to watch us live
Oh my
on
gosh.
YouTube.
It's not normally that much, probably like a second here or 2 seconds there. But as a preface, though, today's episode might be a little bit graphic coming down to the end, just to pre-warn anybody that's listening. I
Okay.
mean, not graphic, but we had the topics coming up that are, sensitive topics.
True.
Not
Um,
necessarily for young ears.
yeah,
Oh, definitely not.
but
Oh,
this
this is an adult podcast, definitely. We
correct.
talk about a lot of stuff that we probably shouldn't have kids listen to. Although I do feel like we're also educational in many ways. So maybe they should listen. I don't know.
I make sure to tag it as not for kids and 18 and over for audio as well. So covering bases there. Okay.
All right.
Life in Japan. Walk us through a normal day and then walk us through a normal week in Japan for you.
Oh, for me. Okay, well, I'm a little bit of uh what would be called a hikikomori,
Mhm.
which is like somebody who is a homebody. Um, I think that term's a little bit strong, actually, because like it's more of somebody who's like shut in for psychological reasons. But I just like didn't really go out that much. But a typical day would be wake up, um, probably 10 minutes before I needed to be at work, and then rush to work, say my usual apologies, um, you know, do depending on what day it was and whether or not the finalized class schedule would come out, I would be at my desk doing some work
Mhm.
until it was time to go to class, um, talk to wonderfully adorable middle school children or high school children, depending on, again, what day it was.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know, go home, um, watch anime, uh, um, and I don't know, like text people, maybe go out for dinner with my friends. Um, guess just really depended.
Mhm.
That would be like a weekday.
Yeah.
Weekends would be like wake up, maybe clean and do some cooking. Um, maybe do some shopping. Oh, on Fridays I had half days. So what I usually did to fill the time between like dinner and getting out of school was like I would go to shopping centers and just like play in the like little arcade that they'd have.
Yeah.
So I got pretty good at crane games.
Oh, I love crane
Yeah.
games.
Yeah, they're fun. Um and yeah, like maybe go out shopping on the weekends with my friends or, in the evening, maybe if like one of the clubs was having an international night, or once a month we had like an international birthday party.
Mm.
We, go hang out. And then, yeah. So basically the week was just like work, 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 and then party.
Work hard, play hard.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So, some of these questions I feel like are only answerable by Amaranth.
Mm.
I was trying to think, like, what can we say our week was like if we were living in Japan? Because we can't really hypothesize that.
Yeah.
That's not the correct word. Anyway, but I do have a question though.
Mhm.
What would you? Well, this is for Wanted and me, I guess. What would you want to do if you were able to go to Japan, like as a vacation?
I'm a
As a
big
vacation?
me
Yeah,
or her?
all of us. This is for all of
Oh,
us.
okay.
Okay.
Well, you go ahead. You're the guest.
Oh, okay. Sure. If I were to go back as just a tourist, um, I think I'd want to explore a little bit more um, in the bigger cities. So Tokyo, um, which like I've been to a couple of times, but um, there's always something new to discover, I think. Um, and then uh, Kyoto, somehow in my 2 years of living in the like literally one prefecture over, I never made it to Kyoto.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
uh, Osaka, uh, I've been to Kobe. It was fun. Definitely want to go back. Uh, Nagoya as well. I want to go back because all I did was go clubbing there. Um, Maybe a fun uh, story for later, but I almost got kidnapped in Nagoya as well. So,
Oh no.
but
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
Nagoya is a great place for clubbing.
Mm.
By the way, like I don't know, it was like 6:30 in the morning, and I was literally like stumbling around just trying to find my car. And people were like, "Are you looking for the club?" And I was like, "No, I just came
Oh
from the club."
wow.
Oh, that's a party place.
Wow. 6:30. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Uh,
for
you
me,
know, yeah, go ahead.
for me, I'm a big foodie, so I'm gonna try and enjoy as much food as possible. And
Mm.
I don't really like history, like to read it, but I like to experience history. So I'd probably go to like a museum, some monuments or something, and just learn as much as I can. And that's pretty much it.
It's
Oh
a good place for it.
man, I like that. I like both of those. I definitely, man. See, I'm happy I went last because now I could just take your answers and use it for myself. Because I like both your answers. Like, I definitely want to like explore all like the major cities that like people who live outside of Japan know about, like Tokyo and stuff, and Kyoto. Um, Maybe visit some places that I've seen in anime. Although, to be honest, I don't actually know their names, so I guess I can't do that. Uh, Definitely want to get some food, get some street meat, as they call it. Um, Although I don't know, I've heard like eating street meat gives you the runs, so maybe not. But I'll risk it.
Not in
I'll risk it for
Japan.
the biscuit.
That name still makes me giggle.
What street meat?
Yeah, man.
um, and then definitely I'll try and do like some of the touristy stuff. But I think if I know someone who lives in Japan or who has like a lot of experience living there before, I might try and see like more local things to do. Like I might go to a park and just like pretend I'm part of the scene and just chill, you
Yeah,
know?
Okay.
that's
So
cool.
apparently we're just all taking a trip to Japan then.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. We have to.
Yeah. So I have a question that came up as you were talking. Did you feel any like tension or judgment towards you being different over there, like in everyday living?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of the time.
Do you
Um,
so a lot of times when I've heard people talk about like Japan, they're like, uh, we might get a little spicy now, right? They're like, oh, they're not racist. They just see you as a foreigner.
Mm.
Like, so their treatment of you is like you're a foreigner. It's not because you're a black person. Is that true or is that a myth?
No, it's definitely a myth. Um, because as a foreigner, you are automatically second class. Um, so like you don't have the same rights and protections as a Japanese citizen. So yeah, no, it's um I would say it constitutes, full racism. And it's not necessarily intentional. I don't think it's malicious um most of the time, but it's definitely I would consider it racism. Um
Okay.
yeah. Like my absolute favorite thing was I would walk into a convenience store or something and, you know, ask for something or some assistance in, grammatically correct Japanese
Yeah.
and get the answer, "I don't speak English." And it's like, well, if you were listening at all and not just, staring at me, then I think you would know that I was not speaking English, so there's not really a communication barrier here.
Damn.
Yikes.
I feel like that is malicious though.
Well, I think part of it is just like they're scared shitless. Like
Oh,
somebody who doesn't look like them comes in and they're not sure if they're going to be able to communicate. And communication is a huge part of, Japanese society.
mhm.
It's a very high context language. I don't know if you guys know like high context and low context languages, but
Teach us.
okay, so high context is mostly like most things are like metaphors and euphemisms. So you have to really, really know what you're saying or what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
or what somebody else is saying to like really get the full message. So you know, um, they're just worried that like their culture or their mannerisms are not going to get through to me because English is it's like mid context, but it's relatively low compared to Japanese.
Yeah, understandable.
Mm.
Are there any words or phrases that are super close that you have to be careful about in general?
Um, yes and no. I mean, there's not really any um specific examples that I can think of off the top of my head,
That's fine.
but there's a lot of synonyms and homonyms.
Mm,
Um, so you just have to be pretty careful.
mhm,
And I guess homophones, homophones,
mhm,
as well. So like you just have to be careful about um, intonation because sometimes like where you put the stress on a word
mhm.
um, makes the entire difference as to what word is um,
Most definitely.
yeah understood. And then
Mm.
again, it's mostly based on context.
Mm,
So for the most part, like if you go in speaking simple Japanese, like most people will get what you're saying, but a lot of people will kind of like overthink what you're saying
mm,
and turn it into something that like it really wasn't.
Oh, so it's like in English where you get into an argument with somebody and they read in between lines that don't exist, kind of thing.
mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I guess it's all
But to the
languages.
point where like they just can't understand anything. They're just like, wait, that didn't make any sense because I'm expecting something more complicated.
Mm,
So,
Mm.
that's cool.
Sounds like a language that caused a lot of miscommunication.
oh yeah. My
You
favorite
know,
thing was I had a teacher who sat right across from me at work, and she was kind of studying English, and her textbook was completely in English, and it just had like little essays on topics related to grammar and culture in Japan.
Mhm.
So one chapter was all about kind of the high context nature of Japanese language. And so it started out with like, well, if your neighbor says like, oh, we were just outside enjoying the cherry blossoms
Mhm.
from your tree, like one of the meanings, and probably the meaning that most people would understand, is your tree is overhanging into my garden. You need to come and trim that.
Oh wow.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
and so, like, the whole essay goes through and just kind of like, I don't know, it kind of bashes the Japanese language, I
Mm,
felt. But then at the end, it's like sometimes people are just enjoying cherry blossoms.
yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, so basically,
Like y'all take a breather, calm down,
Yeah,
please.
exactly.
that sounds like some low-key sarcasm in there.
Yeah, it's, yeah. I mean, most Japanese people would say, like, oh no, Japanese people aren't sarcastic, but when that's how you communicate,
Mhm.
90% of the time, then
Yeah.
That kind of explains a lot more. Like I'm understanding a little bit more because I've seen. I mean, granted, a lot of my experiences with the Japanese culture is through media,
Mhm.
but I've seen like how like people like kind of avoid eye contact and stuff like that, or they seem like really shy people in general. And I wonder if part of it is due to the language just on its own,
Mm,
because you want to avoid any miscommunication or any drama, so you kind of are more like hesitant to communicate.
mm,
yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. And the culture has a very like rigid hierarchy as well. So like you don't want to be seen as overstepping boundaries,
mm.
um, even if it's somebody who's technically on your same level. Um, you don't know that, so yeah.
I have one more question about this. Um, is the written language easier than the spoken language?
Oh, hell no.
So if you
No.
read something, is it easier to understand than if you say something, or is it like the same complexity?
Um, well, let's put it this way. I can't read in Japan. I am completely illiterate,
Mhm.
basically. So, that kind of like gives you a bit of a perspective. Like you need at least a working knowledge of at least 2,000 characters, I think, to
Oof.
kind of like function
Yeah,
in Japan. Plus, there's three pretty different writing systems.
golly.
So, it's just, and they're all like used together.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's pretty difficult. And then like that's just structurally.
Yeah,
When it comes to like semantics and context and things like that, it only gets more complicated.
that's
And
wild.
then you don't have like the physical, like body language or tones
Mm,
and things like
Hmm.
that you would get if you were actually talking to a person. So it's much more difficult, I think.
gotcha, gotcha. Okay,
Oof.
cool.
Wow.
Mhm.
Anything else, Mino, on this topic?
Nah, I'm good.
Before we get into dating, do you have any insight on the relationship between like men and women in general? Like, what's that like in Japan?
I think there's like a pretty generally recognized notion that oh, my cat is here. He was
Cats.
actually born in Japan, so
Oh,
uh, Japanese kitty. Yeah, no, sorry. There's a notion that men and women just cannot be friends.
mm,
Like it's either you are just like acquaintances or you are like on the path to dating or whatever. Like there's no chill point. There's no in between.
wow.
So
Okay. So you're either I know you, but we're not friends, or we are on our way to potentially getting married.
basically,
Wow.
Oh.
at least from like what I've experienced.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
now I'm like interested in Japanese sexuality because, in America, I feel like we have like a lot of different categories. You have friends, you have like acquaintances, you have friends with benefits. Like you have a lot of different, mm, what's the word I'm looking for? You have a lot of different laid back, I can't find the correct word, but I'll just say laid back relationships that don't necessarily mean that you're going to end up married. So I'm guessing in Japan, those don't exist. There are no like flings, one night stands kind of thing, or do those things still exist there?
Oh, they are alive and thriving, my friend.
I
Um,
should have guessed.
yeah,
Of course it is.
no, I mean, like on the surface, Japan and Japanese culture is um, very conservative, and there's clear cut boundaries, or maybe not so clear cut, but there are very firm boundaries. But then, like once you've like crossed, I guess, a certain boundary, like once you get into the dating world, there's like all sorts of things that are available options to you. So having sex friends is a thing, especially if they're at least where I was, and from my experience, um, there it was pretty prevalent to have like a sex friend, I guess, or um, especially like a Japanese person with a foreign person.
Mm.
Um,
You know, that kind of like reminds me of the Caribbean a little bit. So back home is also a very conservative kind of place. So like people, especially women, I'm guessing, are like they want to not have their business in the streets because pretty much everybody knows everybody back home. I'm pretty sure in Japan that's probably not the same because a much bigger landmass. But back home, everybody knows everybody. So especially if you're a woman, you don't want everybody in your business. You don't want everybody knowing what you do. So there's a lot of like on the surface, people are like innocent,
Mhm.
or even claiming that they're still have no sexual experience. But then the reality is that they probably are doing a lot of like freak nasty stuff, you know.
Also,
So that's what I'm imagining is like similar to Japan. Like people there are like they don't want people like necessarily knowing what they're doing,
mm,
but they are doing stuff.
yeah, that's a pretty good uh, intuition. Um, you definitely like don't want everybody knowing what you're doing. um, but like it's yeah, it's I don't know how to explain it because like everybody kind of still knows your business. Like I was in a smaller city. So like we definitely knew like who was hooking up with who, um, and for how long and whether or not they were supposed to be. But like at the same time, everything was still kind of like underground and you only saw certain things in certain contexts. So like at parties, you're just like, oh, that girl is definitely hooking up with
mhm.
that person. But like, out in like the normal world, like the normal world, I don't know what that is, but out in day to day life, that's not something that would ever come up or affect them, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. It's very separate.
So you mean like they would
Yep.
walk past each other in the streets, but then on different scenes they're hooking up?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, that really sounds like back home, dude.
Yeah. Well, back home, dating is actually not really a thing. Like if you want to say that you're dating, they think that you just want to have multiple partners at the same time when you actually are trying to date, as the word implies. So it's hard to say that you're dating without one hurting people, looking like a player, looking like s- you know negative things when you just I won't call it playing the field, but it's like you're trying to find the right match for you. But in their eyes, you have to stick with one person for as long as you can and then find somebody else after that's done. When that's not necessarily the case in like America, where you can date different people and then find the right one and then choose the right one. So I feel like it's a big, big difference, big contrast.
I kind of want to speak on that a little bit more because I feel like in this podcast we talked about dating and kind of defining what it is in the
Hmm.
past, and I kind of want to revisit that. Uh, I was just reading the YouTube chat. We kind of talked about it in the past, and I kind of want to like think of a different word besides dating. Like when people are actually in a relationship, oftentimes they call it, "Oh, we're dating," but I feel like that's past the dating phase. To me, the dating phase is like before a relationship,
Hmm.
where you're kind of like going on little dates with random people
Hmm.
to get to know them. And then after that dating phase, you pick a person, and then you're like, "Oh, we're in a relationship now." But people still call it dating. What do you guys think? What is dating really?
I think it's so vague, and I think that's the problem. That so many people have different definitions for it, and that's where the problem comes from. Where you say we're dating, when in actuality they mean that they're exclusively dating each other or something like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, I never really like thought about it that way either. Like, um, yeah, like I never like sat down and like thought about the meaning
Mhm.
of the term like talking like I don't know, cause like there's like different levels. I feel like there's like no, we're friends or like oh, we're talking,
Mhm.
which maybe I guess by your from what I'm hearing from your thought process, like um that's probably more of your like dating stage or
Mhm.
like that's more of a dating thing and then like there's like
I'll
we're
say
in a
yeah.
exclusive relationship
Mhm.
Mhm.
and then you know it can go on from there but yeah I don't even know where that thought started but I'm just like mind is blown right now.
Welcome to the rabbit hole.
Yes, that's literally the rabbit hole. All right, so I guess what you're saying is blah, a synonym for what people call like going out and stuff, or we're just like going on dates is we're talking. I mean, I'm talking to several people.
Mm.
That's kind of like that stage. Okay. You see,
But
and that's so cool. That's cool. And also the problem with English is that there's so many different words that are synonymous or like you could use in place of others.
mhm.
So then it's like, oh, we're talking. And then I could even imagine someone else taking that as, oh, they're talking. That means that they're exclusive.
That's
Even
what
still.
that is a
Yeah.
meaning that has back home.
Oh really?
Yeah, on St. Thomas, where I used to live, when people were talking, they were basically exclusive.
Oh,
So
that's interesting.
yeah, it's too vague,
Man,
but it's too late to change it now.
yeah. So I think what that means is if I was still in a dating scene, I would say, and this is probably some advice for the audience, if is there any single younger people out there, make sure that you clarify with your person or people that you're talking to or dating around with what's going on. Like, hey, we're just going out on dates. I'm trying to get to know you. Like be very clear because for one thing, what happens often, in my experience, is that people aren't on the same page. One person is thinking, "Oh, we're exclusive," and the other
Mhm.
person is thinking, "Oh, I'm just having fun right now," and that only leads to like heartache and other issues. So just
Yeah.
try and be as direct and clear as possible with everyone.
And
I actually got in trouble with that. Oh, I'm sorry.
sorry, I was gonna
Uh-oh,
say to
uh-oh.
add to that, or just gonna say to avoid a potential red flag is if you tell somebody that you're not serious and they still try to make you serious, you should probably back out or stop talking to them in that way.
Yeah.
Because
Or the other way around too. If you're stating
exactly.
that you want it to be serious and they're like
Mm,
consistently like no,
yeah.
maybe that's not a good fit for you as well.
Yeah. You could go
Facts.
ahead.
I want to hear that story.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got in trouble yesterday
Uh-oh.
because I called the person that I am talking to my
Uh-oh.
partner,
Okay.
and that apparently has a much stronger meaning for him than it does for me.
Uh-oh.
Huh.
So,
Damn English, man.
it's not even just English, it's like English and culture. Like, what do you
Yeah.
do? Because
Yeah.
like,
So let's talk about that then. Talk about your experience dating across cultures in Japan.
uh, yeah, um, it was very interesting. I got stuck in the um in the sex friend zone, if you want to call it that,
Mm-hmm.
quite often. So like, um, as a foreigner, and I think a little bit as a Black woman as well,
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely hypersexualized uh, in most people's minds.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a very good candidate as a sex friend or a friend with benefits or whatever
Mm.
you want to call it. But I was definitely probably never going to be an option of like I'm gonna take you home to like meet my family and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so dating in Japan for me was very difficult. Um, it was either that or like the exact opposite, where it's like the first time we meet, people are like basically proposing marriage. So
Oh wow.
yeah, like there was one guy who it was really funny because like I met him on Tinder, but he apparently knew a couple of my friends
Mm-hmm.
who like they attended university together. And so like after our first date, he was just like, "Oh, I'm gonna come over and I'm just gonna stay the night," or um like I don't know, like I want to hang out with you, but we're just like gonna hang out at your house and like not talk to other people or whatever. And it was just like or like I think the second time I had like proposed a date, he was like, um, "Oh, do I get to go to this party with you as your boyfriend?" It's like I've known you for 2 hours, so probably not. But um,
Mm.
yeah. So I guess it definitely runs the gamut. But
Interesting.
But there's no in between, is what I'm hearing. There's no like actual build up to relationship. It's like they're either jumping the gun or they're not interested at all.
yeah, or the only thing that they're interested is sex. Um,
Typical men.
basically,
Yeah, I feel like
basically,
that's in line with what you said before because there's no like friendships to actually build getting to know each other in the first place. So they either
yeah.
have to
Ah,
get
yeah.
one thing or
Well,
get the other.
Mm.
but I mean, is that true? I mean, is like that the experience for every woman in Japan though? Or is
I
it
mean,
just her experience? Because remember, like she said, like she is a black woman and she's a foreigner and
I mean, hers is
all
probably
of that.
more on the extreme scale, but it's still in line with, you know, staying apart for the most part.
Mm.
yeah.
Unless I'm wrong.
No, I feel like you're definitely onto something. It's definitely, I think it's a hard medium to navigate for pretty much anybody,
Mm-hmm.
just because I'll give you an example with one of my coworkers. Um, so nobody knew that she was like dating anybody or anything like that until all of a sudden she, like, in my second year, she told the principal that she was changing her last name because she was getting married.
What the
Yeah.
damn?
And it was really funny because there was another teacher who was definitely sweet on her,
Mm-hmm.
but they did a duet together in the school talent show and everything,
Work
and
husband.
it work husband basically. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It basically she'd been dating that person like since she started at the school, which was I think a year or so before I even came to Japan. So yeah, it's everything is completely and utterly under wraps until it's not.
Yeah.
Wow.
And to be honest, I think the only reason she actually had to tell anybody was because I think she got pregnant.
Mm.
Because like not after she announced she got married,
Hmm.
she uh, announced that she was also pregnant. So
That's some super secretive lifestyles, man.
Dude, I am so curious now because now I'm like imagining that they were fuck friends. Wait, is that the word we've been using this whole time?
No, you just made it up. You could just say friends with benefits.
Sorry.
I said sex friends, which is
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah, that's the word. Okay. So they were sex I imagine that they were sex friends, and I could be completely wrong. I'm just making this up. But I imagine, right? They were sex friends first, and then somehow things got more serious. They started dating exclusively, and maybe she got knocked up while they were just, doing the thing,
Mhm.
well, the other thing.
Don't do
And
that.
then he was like, "Let me be a responsible man and marry her."
Mm,
That's my made up hypothesis.
so I think the end of your story is correct.
mm,
Um, I don't really know about how they started. I didn't prior ask any questions, but like um definitely you see with a lot of men in Japan, like if they get their girlfriends pregnant, they definitely are like, well, I should, step up and be responsible and marry her so that, you know, it doesn't become an issue.
That's
Um,
like interesting.
yeah, I saw that quite a few times actually in uh, when I was in Japan. So,
I feel like that's good
um,
though, because that's like a preemptive, like you're avoiding the whole shotgun wedding thing. You just doing it on your own accord because you have the honor to do so.
All right. Any Japanese or people or women living in Japan? Now you know how to get married. So
Oh my
get out
gosh.
there and
I have a question to do like a little backstory. Did you go to Japan on your own, or did you go with like a group?
so I went under the JET program,
Hmm.
but so they have a pretty good system. Like if you are able to participate,
Hmm.
they kind of um, they started doing at least where I was, they started doing a series leading up to going to Japan where you got to meet people, you got to meet alum, um, and uh, basically the people that you were going to go with, and they would try to consistently pair you up with people that you would be going to the same prefecture with. So in essence, yes, I went alone, but I also did go with a bit of a community.
Okay. And you were the only African American female over there?
No, actually, in my town, there were 3 of us.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we may have been the only 3 Black women in the prefecture, under our, under JET. But, I met, um, a couple of African women. I met, um, a couple Japanese, or not Japanese, Jamaican women as well, who were just, there.
Okay.
Either they'd been there as, like, on JET or on something similar beforehand, and then they happened to stay, or they were there with, like, husbands who were studying at the university or something like that. So,
All right.
yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
How do you think dating would be for us as Black men over there?
Um, I think there are a wealth of, sex shops that you would do well to frequent. Um, Meaning like,
What? That's not
like
dating though.
like sex, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. Um,
That's
so
wild.
I think the, like, racism bit kind of comes into this.
Mm,
Um, like, Black men are just kind of dangerous uh in the mind's eye, in the public's eye,
mm,
because all they know about Black men is what's basically shown on TV. Like, there's no Black people indigenous to Japan.
mhm.
There's not a
No.
um, there's not a huge population, I guess. So, you'll have the people who fetishize, wow, um, Black men, um, and might try to jump your bones or whatever. But uh, I think for the most part, you'd probably end up with foreign women for the most part, or um, just whatever toys you feel
So for us, it would
are
definitely
appropriate.
be see us in the street, don't even look at us, don't even talk to us. But then in the red district, for sure, they'll talk to us.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Ugh, yikes.
Although,
Yeah.
I mean, like, in in the red light district, uh, I was doing a little bit of reading up on it.
Mm.
Apparently, they don't really cater to foreigners that much.
I read that too.
Um, yeah. So I don't know. Even there, it might be difficult. I think it's just they want to curtail, like, sex tourism,
Hmm.
which is, its own problem in itself.
Yep.
But
Mm. Wait. Hold up. Okay, maybe that's a topic for Patreon or to talk offline. But now I'm curious about that. I've never actually heard that word sex tourism before. I feel like I should have though.
yeah,
And
it's a
like,
big problem, like Thailand and stuff.
because now I'm curious, like, what exactly is the problem with it per se? Like, I'm not 100% sure.
We
I
could
mean, I
talk
know I'm
after.
guessing that there might be something wrong with it, but I can't see why it would be a problem. If you have prostitution in your country or your state, and people are going there to make use of that, what's the problem? I mean, it's the same as if they came to view your historical sites. Like, I don't know.
Well, the thing is, you can't really traffic in historical sites, right?
Hmm.
Whereas people can definitely be exploited.
Mhm.
So it comes down to basically consent, um, is the main issue with it. Whether or not the people who are involved can give consent, um, it's a pretty broad
Yeah.
and difficult topic, I think.
Yeah,
So,
because now I have more questions after your answer. Because I'm like, now, like, well, if they can't consent for foreigners, why can they consent for their own people? Do they
It,
actually have agency or not? You know?
and probably not at all.
Yeah.
So I think a big part of it is children, you know.
Ugh.
So
Yeah.
What?
from what I read, to touch on that first, the age of consent is like 13. So you have to
In
be,
Ugh.
Japan.
yeah,
Uh,
you have to be very careful with what you're doing and where you're going. And
Yeah, I don't.
also, when it comes to prostitution, um, penetration is the only thing that you can't do. So you can pay for basically anything else.
Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah.
So you have to be careful where you go, who you talk to, who you with, because like she said, they don't cater to foreigners. So you have to be able to speak explicitly what you're looking for or what you want. Otherwise, you get in trouble.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but you also have to be able to do it in that roundabout way.
Hmm.
Yeah. So the good news is, if I was going to Japan, that's not what I would be going for anyway. So,
Yeah.
whew, that's one less thing to worry about.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we touched on that. Oh, you brought up an interesting um thing, the racial dating triangle. I couldn't find much about it, but I found like one story about it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, this is more of like a social media thing,
Hmm.
but it's just kind of like um white women date black men. Men are dating, or sorry, sorry, white women are dating black men, and white men are dating Asian women. So the only the only two groups that are kind of left to mingle are Asian men and black women. So everybody's like, "Hey, let's make that happen." Um, and I am, I am all for it, but at the same time, like I feel like that only really works here in the U.S., where we have such a diverse population. Maybe in European countries as well, but um, I feel like it doesn't really hold water in other countries. Um, and so like in Japan, Japanese people of would of all sexual orientations and whatnot, I think they would definitely prefer either somebody of their own race, or if they are going to step outside of their race, then it's going to be somebody who is white.
Hmm.
Um, so, where do black women kind of fit into all of this? I guess, and that's also kind of the premise of why I started my podcast in the first place.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, because like I don't know, black women just tend to be like sex objects in most cultures, um, and definitely marginalized.
Yeah. Damn. So y'all don't even have any part of the triangle.
Yeah.
No, and honestly, that triangle is us trying to like make a nice square box like fit.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think
Mm.
because really, black women don't have a huge part in the dating scene ever. Like most major couples that you do see, it's either or like most trends that you hear about, um, white women, black men, or um, white men wanting Asian women. So, you
Yeah.
know,
So
what's left?
what I read was that Asians fall in a very special place when it comes to race because
Hmm.
white people kind of accept them more than black people. So now they have to find a balance in interacting with both sides because they could be more favored by the whites by treating blacks a certain way, or they could make the whites not like them by siding with the blacks. So they're in a confusing bubble themselves.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's definitely a battle of like what is a model minority,
Hmm.
Um, And it's like, I think both Blacks and Asians have suffered very greatly historically when it comes to um, like positions in society and exploitation and whatnot. But um, as of right now, it seems like it's much, physically, I guess an Asian person is much more like a white person than they are a Black person. And therefore, um, people will go above and beyond to find similar traits between an Asian person and a white person than a Black person and a white person.
Mhm.
And so while they're still marginalized, they are kind of like put up on a slightly higher pedestal,
Yep, yep.
I think.
Yeah. Wow.
It's kind of like, Asian dramas and, K-pop and things like that are like becoming very popular in the US, but like Nigerian films, which are, I think, wonderful things, are not a big thing in the US right now.
I
Like it's
agree.
becoming bigger, but it hasn't had the explosion that
Mhm.
Asian culture has.
Yeah.
Mm, man. So let's go back to talking about sex because this is bringing me down.
Oh man. Do you have any questions, Mino?
Yeah,
Specifically?
I actually did.
Okay.
One of Amaranth's question from earlier, I mean, from when we shared our questions with each other,
Mhm.
was you have here like the nature and variety of sex work in Japan.
Yeah.
And you said that you weren't very like super knowledgeable about it. Uh, but did you do any research on that, or Amaranth, did you have anything you want to share specifically about that? Because I didn't do
Um,
any research. I'll just be honest.
I think we covered it a while ago when we talked about like where we would find ourselves. But if there's anything else you want to add, Amaranth, then go ahead.
yeah, there's actually quite a bit. So like there's like explicit sex work, and then there's, more innocent things where you kind of like play at the idea of sex, but not
Hmm,
um
interesting.
yeah, not explicitly. So like there are things called like snack bars,
Mhm.
where they're
I'm a
basically,
snack. Sorry.
um you basically go they're catered more for men, generally older men as well, but there's usually like a single hostess who works the bar. She's your bartender, she's your friend. um my cat's going to end this call on accident, sorry. um uh she basically has the role of playing like a potential sex partner, without any like explicit expectation that that's going to happen. Um, but it's definitely played at. She pays attention to you. She caters to you in a way that most Japanese men find attractive and pleasing.
So that sounds like
Um,
a
Mm,
regular bartender, though.
it's definitely more over the top.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So I think I mentioned this when we were hanging out. Oh, I guess I just dropped names about who was hanging out last night. Um, but we I kind of brought up like when you go to drinking parties, there's usually a second round. So when I went out with the people at my high school that I taught at, we usually went to a snack bar for our second round. And so the feel was definitely much more intimate. It was
mm,
smaller, like there's maybe like 6 chairs at the bar. Um,
mm,
and it's a very close and intimate setting. Like you can definitely like it's so small that you can definitely see, like, for bottle service, you can read the names of, like, whose bottle is whose. And like, the hostess will join in karaoke with you, and it's kind of like an expectation. It's not like, oh, we should ask the bartender if she wants to do a song. No, she's like, she might even start it off, if anything. So, and like very deep and intimate conversations about like home life and family and, how's the wife, how's the kids. So yeah, it's quite intimate.
Are
So
there
I have a
any?
question.
You go ahead.
Is it okay? So is that like a geisha, or is that something that doesn't exist anymore?
No, geisha still exists.
Okay.
It definitely there's actually, oh, that's a whole nother topic of sexuality, but one of the most um famous or sought after geisha in Japan very recently anyway was actually a young male who he was the last person in his family. Like, I think he was an only child of a prominent family that of geisha, and so he took up the mantle to kind of continue the family business. And yeah, very very sought after, very good at his trade. I guess it's not really understood what his sexuality or gender preference, I guess. I'm not really sure what term I need to use right now, but like gender identity, there we go, is that's not really known, but it's still a thriving business, especially in Kyoto. You can even go and like dress up as a geisha for the day. That's a pretty thriving business as well. But yeah, it's out of the same tradition, definitely. But that it's a little bit different, I think.
So when you say it's more over the top than a regular bartender, to me it still seems like a regular bartender. So are there any like actions that a normal bartender wouldn't do that somebody at a snack bar would do to let you know like that it's really over the top?
I mean, I don't know, maybe boundaries with physical touch.
Mm.
I don't know, like the topics, the fact that the hostess is, it's usually a hostess. Like, there's no, as far as I know, there's no like male run snack bars.
Okay.
It's usually a female at the bar. And they definitely just cater to things that a slightly older generation of Japanese men would be into.
Okay.
I just, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess like the difference between a regular bar and a snack bar in Japan too is starkly different. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is it something you'd have
There's
to
not.
see to know? Like if you see it, you'd know for sure. Like this is different.
Well, I mean, well, yeah, yeah. When you experience, you're just like, okay, this is.
All right. That makes it easier for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so like snack bars are one thing. Host clubs, hostess clubs, those are a different thing as well. Where like I think host clubs and hostess clubs are definitely more of like, you're going to go there and you're going to be assigned a person and they're going to lavish you with attention, and usually ply you with drinks as well, to kind of like play up that fantasy
Mhm.
as well. There's things like compensated dating. Who like again, when I was on Tinder in Japan, there was a person who was using a perfectly free website to offer compensated dating
Mm.
to
Hmm.
people. And it's just like, well, if you wanted to date, you don't have to like put that up there. But I guess like a part of it too is like people would also enjoy the feeling of paying money for
Mm.
um,
Gotcha.
the girlfriend experience,
Mhm.
I think in America they call that being a sugar baby.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, but even then, like compensated dating in Japan, it's not necessarily like an age thing. Whereas in the US, it tends to be an age thing as well.
Mm.
Right. So like
Mostly.
an older man to a younger woman or an older woman to a younger man.
I think there's
Um,
been a recent upsurge of a different type of site that you can use for that. It doesn't have any age restrictions on it, but I have to look
mm,
into it.
that's interesting.
Huh. Compensated dating. That's an interesting topic because I know in some cultures, well, maybe not some cultures, we already kind of talked about it. In Japan, it's kind of hard to navigate the dating scene. And I wonder if this is one way people can quote unquote practice in a way.
Um, yeah. I guess if you're trying to do if you're trying to compensate somebody within your own age group or class or whatever,
Mm.
um, then yeah, you could definitely see it as a way to practice or just like easily get somebody to be in your space long enough to, I guess, develop a relationship. Um, but again, it's kind of also a gateway for exploitation because a lot of people are just looking for like it's older men looking for younger girls and um, you know you don't really know what kind of situation
Yeah.
everybody's in. So
Oh.
yeah.
So the site is called Seeking. I think that's where Myron from Fresh and Fit met the girl that he was talking to.
Yeah.
So like there's no age restriction necessarily. It's just rich versus not so rich.
Hmm. Man, this is like a lot of stuff that I'm it's just like my brain is like exploding right now.
Yeah.
Because now I'm like thinking about anime and about how like in anime everybody looks like they're like 12 years old. And um I'm guessing in the other version of anime that you would find on the hub,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I don't want to get too explicit.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Often those characters also look kind of underage as well. So like, is that like a cultural thing, like being that young? And because you also said that the age of consent is 13, so like, is that a normal thing? Does pedophilia? Oh, I don't know if I could use that word on YouTube. Does that exist in Japan, or is that
So
just like a normal thing?
I just want to say that there's actually a like a category for that. So they don't look like they're young, they are young. But Amran, you can
Ugh.
continue answering.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's definitely um a fetish too of like having people dress as schoolgirls, like,
Mm-hmm.
fully like, I mean, consenting even like in the US or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
countries where laws are a little bit more conservative, um, where you like a 25-year-old might dress as a schoolgirl, um,
Hmm.
for a date or something like that. Or it's a very popular theme in um, porn and things like that as well. So Yeah. Um, yeah, I think like it's less of like actual age and more of just like selling an image of purity
Mhm.
um
Mm.
and youth, um, which like can mean a lot of things to different people. But um yeah, I think that's what it kind of boils down to.
Okay. That makes it a little bit easier to accept, I guess.
So, Amaranth, you never technically dated in Japan, did you?
Um yeah, that's a yeah, not really.
Mm,
Um at least not a Japanese person.
mhm.
Um and then the one kind of relationship that I was in was not going to lead anywhere. So
Yeah, so these questions that we have here won't really fit, but maybe you can answer them from more of like a general perspective.
yeah.
It's like, have you ever had to struggle with compromising who you were to date someone?
Mm, um so in doing my podcast and like talking to a lot of other black girls about dating in Japan,
Mhm,
um it seems like there's definitely been a trend of like um not that you would have to compromise, but just like the dating world in Japan was not a good suit for who they were as a person,
mhm,
um, especially like being seen as hypersexual, um, and things like that. Um, there was a guy that I went on a date with, who was very much into Black culture. Um, and like he had mentioned that he wanted to be Black. He was
okay.
like, if I, um, could be, reborn, I'd want to come back as a Black person. And it was just like, I know absolutely zero people who want to be a Black person. Um, so I think you like need to like look a little bit deeper
Yeah,
or,
it's
you
a
know,
disconnect that they have because it's weird too because as you said, they see negative things about us, but yet still we're still so glorified in other ways that you would almost want to be Black. But then when you actually think about it, and if you actually were Black, you realize it's not always chopped up to be at times.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think they in many ways fetishize Black culture.
Mhm,
Hmm.
It's like we see Black people like everything they do is, especially like in art or anything that involves creativity, is like so amazing and so
mhm,
like it looks like they're always having fun. Kinda like when you
yeah,
see them on screen, like they're like having fun.
mhm,
Hmm.
So it's like, man, I want to be a part of that. Like all the coolest dances that I know is from a Black person. All the best music that I like, well, not all, most of the best music that I like is from
mhm,
Black people. Poetry, stories, etc. Like I feel like people see this, or even like just non-art stuff. Like when you go to a movie theater and you're watching a movie, and the Black people in there are like hyping it up,
yeah,
or if you're a comedian, like I've heard comedians say when they have a Black audience, like the vibe is just so different compared to like a white
mhm,
audience, because
yeah,
the Black people will literally get out their chairs and like hoot and holler and make
yeah,
a scene, and it makes it more fun for them as a comedian or whatever
yeah,
performer on stage,
mhm,
because they can actually tell the audience is enjoying themselves.
yep,
So I feel like Black people, generally speaking, when people look at us, like it's like despite all the hardship and all the other BS in the world, we still find like ways to enjoy ourselves and make things like better.
I agree.
And I think that's what people see, and then
Mhm,
that's what they want, but then they don't want any of the bad stuff that comes with it, or they don't recognize that there's other stuff that comes with that.
Right. I definitely think it's like um Black people are a more expressive population.
Mhm.
And that's just because like we've had to be, it comes out of that racism and history of like slavery and things like that, where we've had to find creative ways to express ourselves. Um, and when we show support, we have to show support.
Mhm.
Um,
Hmm.
where like we don't really have the luxury of being ambivalent or quiet,
Yeah.
basically.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's one thing that like people they just see the surface, and they don't want to look deeper into like, well, why is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mino, can you answer the question about giving up parts of yourself for somebody that you were dating?
Oh man, I had a very varied background in dating and sexuality and all that stuff. And I would say, yeah, I have. Um, and that's as far as that answer goes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, for me, I'm not much of a like religious person, but I've had to go to church multiple times, like almost every week for people that I was dating, just because I don't know, it was like the right thing to do or a nice thing to do. I don't know. I've also had to stop using language in the way that I know to use language because people felt like I was trying to be smarter than them when I'm just speaking. So I had to dumb myself down for them as well. And
Uh,
yeah,
I've had to do that as well.
I believe that most men wouldn't like a woman to be smarter than them for some reason.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Um, I like I guess as I've grown older and like tried to be more in the dating scene,
Hmm.
I've definitely had to work on things like code switching, um, or performing my blackness.
Uh-huh.
Um, whereas I think like if anybody were just listening to me, like I would definitely I would do very well on a phone interview.
Hmm.
Um, uh, my name is very European. My style of speech is, very much standard English. Yeah. um, I don't even know what I said. But like I mispronounced a word that sounded very, very Midwestern.
Hmm.
I think I said like wagon or something weird like that. And I was just like, whoa,
Uh,
like that was too white for me. So
yeah, we talked about questionnaire before, and I don't really like it. I don't like the entirety of it. Like if you're trying to sound more professional, that's one thing. But when you say you're trying to sound less black and more white, that's when there's a real problem for me
yeah.
personally.
yeah. We
Well,
talked about codes. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like for me, like the code switching is definitely to sound more black than
Mm.
I did before. Cause like all throughout middle school and high school, I was like definitely teased and a little
Oh,
bit
you tried to get
ostracized.
accepted into the black community more because of how you spoke.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, yeah.
That's
I
crazy.
was, yeah, I was teased
But
and
we,
ostracized because I acted white, and I was like,
yep,
no, I just,
I knew it
Yeah,
was coming.
we talked about
yeah,
that.
I hate that so much. Why do we associate like, okay, this person is speaking in a more standardized way of English, so therefore they must be acting white. Like, I don't
Hmm.
know. I feel like a lot of times whenever someone is doing something people think is a positive trait, they associate it with whiteness. And
Hmm.
then when people are doing something with a, I guess, less positive trait, not necessarily a negative, but just less positive,
Hmm.
then they're like, oh, you're being black or you're being whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
hmm
it's just like the other you're othered if you're not doing the standard version, and then if you're doing the standard version, then you're trying to be white. And it's like, no, you can still be a marginalized person and talk in a standard way of speaking without acting white. You're just acting like yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to internalized racism,
Mhm.
right?
Definitely.
So, like, if you're not exactly like us, then you're trying to be like them. And that's
Mhm.
unfortunately not always the case.
And that goes
Or
back
that's,
years and
yeah.
years and years because we were made to hate them by them. So
Mhm.
we do.
Can't even
Well,
eat
not
pumpkin
personally.
pie.
What? I don't like pumpkin pie. I don't know what that means.
See? I can't be accepted into the black community because I like pumpkin pie. Just
Oh,
kidding. No,
is pumpkin pie too white? I didn't know that.
I don't know that either.
no, I would just Kev. You guys know Kev on stage.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So he is a running joke with him where like he argues with his fan base because he doesn't like some pie that I guess is standard in black
Sweet
families.
potato pie, probably.
Yeah,
Sweet potato pie, yeah.
yeah. Like he preferred a different kind. I think he said pumpkin pie.
Hmm.
So it's like a
Uh,
running joke, like I'm still black even though I like pumpkin pie. You know,
oh, okay.
that's what it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Um, I really enjoyed today's podcast. It's very light, even though it's dark at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of pumpkin pie.
Oh my gosh. Was there any times you guys had to teach someone something about your culture so that they could better understand you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
You guys gonna say more than yeah or
Yeah, yeah. We have to
after?
give examples. I know.
okay. I can go first.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, there was that one guy who was like, I wish I was black.
Hmm.
Um, and I definitely had to like sit him down and be like, no, you don't. And here's why. um, and like I don't think he even like realized like the racism that's was inherent in Japan as well. And I think a lot of my Japanese friends didn't. Like I got in a huge online like battle about um there was like a Chinese commercial where like a black man goes into the washing machine and comes out as a white man. And like I was just like it like when, Japanese people tell me that there's no racism in Japan. And then like it was a huge thing where like people were posting like instances of blackface and um things like that. And it's just like, well, like again, walking into the grocery store and being like, I need help in Japanese and being told that they don't speak English. Like it's that's like a lot to teach and very difficult, I think. But then like also like teaching like dance and even learning dance. Like while I was in Japan, I was in a hip hop class, um, which was I think a little bit ironic, but because I went to a Japanese woman to teach me hip hop, but it was fun.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, just like how prolific dance and music is in the African American culture. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So like there's been both like difficult and like good things about it as well.
Yeah, that's life, man.
Yeah.
Uh, teaching someone else about my culture. I would say, yeah, anytime I have like friends or even someone I'm dating and I bring them back home,
Hmm.
just telling them like how to um behave, I guess, like, because back home is like manners are a big thing, you know, saying good morning, good afternoon, good night when you enter a building
Yeah.
or enter a residency is
Hmm.
important.
Yep.
Um, like I literally growing up got beat for not saying good morning, good afternoon, good night when I entered a house. Well, not beat, but I'll get sent back outside.
Do it again the right way.
Yeah, you forget something outside. That's what my grandma would say. Forget something outside. Um, or like in the islands, we're also like more direct, I feel, than in
Mhm,
America. Like we will just tell you straight up whatever we have to say.
mhm,
And I feel like whenever I bring like foreign people, sorry, whenever I bring Americans home, they kind of get offended very easily from that because
yeah,
it's like, oh, this person is being rude.
yeah,
But it's not really that they're being rude, it's just they're just being more direct than you're accustomed to.
mhm,
Or even another thing that I kind of got unused to was people like being mean, but like not seriously being mean.
mhm,
So one time I went home and this girl was this woman was a bartender and I'm trying to order my drink and she's being mean to me and I'm just like confused. And then I realized, oh, this is her way of flirting with me because she
mhm,
was like being mean. And then when I started being mean back, she was like smiling and laughing and I was like, this is so weird. But
yeah,
like I had even forgotten about like that's a normal part
mhm,
of like the culture as well.
gotcha.
So
Yeah. I think my biggest teaching would have to be like music and manners, like you said, because our music is not what this music is up here. It's like highly sexualized, and the words don't always sound like what they are. So you'd have to teach them what the song is actually saying before they can enjoy it for the most part.
yeah,
And whenever I took a girl home that wasn't from home, it was like they would feel offended and sensitive about what's being said, but it's not like they mean anything bad by it. And I think that's one of the biggest culture blocks that we have, that we are more direct and we're just gonna tell you things straight up. Like you don't eat, like that's not a bad thing. Just like you look a little bit skinny, you know.
Well, I mean, that's also like that's kind of a high context, low context type of thing too, because it's like
Hmm.
even then you didn't say like you're skinny.
Hmm.
You said you don't eat, like,
Hmm.
you know,
yeah,
and so that I think from a lower context, um, American standard is just kind of like, well, are you saying that I have a problem? Like, you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
whereas like if you're just like you're skinny, then they'd be like, oh, well, I don't know. I guess this is my preferred body type, or
Mm.
you know, maybe I can go on the seconds. It's fine.
But I mean, if you tell somebody that they're skinny, I think that's more offensive and direct than asking them if they don't eat, because that's more like a playful way.
Well, yeah, it's more playful, but
Yeah.
then you have to have somebody who knows how to receive it,
Yeah.
which
Exactly.
again is the
Hmm.
problem. Whereas, like
Yeah.
in the States, you don't eat could mean so many different things.
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
The good news is we have a word for people who look too skinny in the islands that I know Americans won't know, so we could
Yeah.
use that. Just be like, hey, you MAGA
You
man, like you need to
maga.
eat.
Man. And I feel like thinking about this question, that there's also cultural differences within America itself, like South versus North, East versus West. Like there's so
True.
much complexity here that anybody will go through this. 'Cause I think in the notebook, the girl was from up north and the guy was from down south or something like that. But like they had their own cultural things to go through as well.
The Notebook, the movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never seen or read it, but yeah.
Okay. You should. I mean, you don't have
Yeah.
to.
I I've
Yeah,
been
it's a
told on
decent one.
several occasions. It's a
Have-
decent movie.
Yeah. I think I cried. I'm not sure.
Oh.
I know I did. Man. So speaking
Yeah.
about media, how do you guys feel about the difference between a black love story and a white love story in media?
I feel like lately they've been kind of becoming kind of similar.
Hmm.
'Cause I feel like nowadays movies are trying to stop. Oh, damn. I knew I wanted to say something earlier and I forgot. Now I just remembered, but
Say it.
it's too late now.
No, never too late. Say it
Is it?
now.
It's never too late.
I was gonna say we were talking about how media affects the Japanese perception of Black people,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and I was gonna make a joke, like, well, not a joke, but kind of a joke,
Uh,
where it was like, even with Black Panther coming out, they still have a bad perception of us. But never mind. Anyway, I feel like I feel like I feel like nowadays movies are trying to not stereotype as much Black people and just showing us in normal relationships. Um, I can't think of a movie right now because I'm kind of on the spot, but I feel like more and more movies are just showing us like just existing and not like, oh, you're gonna be a gangster or you're gonna be in a relationship, but one of you guys are gonna be on drugs or something, and the other person is not. Is they're just showing us like we're just a regular family person, like the guy might be an engineer, mom might be a nurse, and we're just a Black family, you know? So I feel like media is changing. I don't remember the original question, but that's my answer.
So I feel like to help you, I feel like it's a shift in who's in charge. There's more black directors and more all black staff and things like that. So they have the power now to change the narrative into what we would like to see. Like not so much slave movies anymore, and like have like the black sidekick. It's more like black oriented movies.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
kind of appreciate that a lot. I'm
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, there's definitely been a little bit of a shift um on that front. But like even like I feel like on a like base level, like the number of minorities just in the background um has kind of gone up a little bit. And in like minor roles where like literally absolutely any race can play it. There's been a little bit of an increase in the number of Black people who are taking up those kinds of roles.
Mhm.
Um, but definitely, I think progress is still slow. It's
yeah,
still definitely like this is going to be a Black film and this is going to be a white film,
Mhm.
you know, even if Black people are slightly being able to permeate into the more white films. But yeah, like even like Black Panther was kind of revolutionary because the superhero genre has been so focused on white audiences.
Mhm.
And then,
hmm
Panther came and it was basically um it was a black movie set in the white like universe, if that makes any sense.
Lots to say.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. It's a Black movie set in a white universe. That's how I feel like Black people exist in general
Mhm.
right now on this planet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So we're
Yeah.
almost at closing. This has been great. This podcasting thing. So have you ever thought about starting over again or revamping?
Yeah, several times. Especially as I gain more experience and confidence in like the dating world.
Mhm.
Um, I've definitely thought about it a lot. Um, I just have so many balls in my court right now. I don't even know like how I would be able to handle it right now, you know?
Yeah.
So, but it's definitely something I would like to bring back up just because I feel like there needs to be more voices in the world that, are diverse
Yeah.
and um especially having like I recently started back at grad school and like just the difference of stories that I've heard
Mhm.
like even between like different age groups, let alone
Mm.
like race and sex. Like it's definitely very interesting and I want to help the rest of the world explore that.
I would suggest getting a beautiful co-host like mine to help you bounce ideas back and forth.
Yeah, that might definitely be the route to go.
Yeah. So,
Although, um, never mind. That's something we will talk about offline.
okay.
Okay.
Any last minute words from you, Mino?
I did have another question.
Mhm.
Let me see if I can remember it. Let's see if I wrote it down. Nope, it's gone. All right.
So,
The only closing words for me would be this was a really good podcast. I learned a lot about Japan.
Mm,
I wonder if maybe in the future we could have a Japanese person on the show to kind of see like where their perspective differs because they are actually maybe grew up there or more engrossed in the culture. So I feel like when you grew up in a culture, you kind of have your blinders on to like the issues.
yeah.
So I kind of wonder what would be the differences from their perspective.
Mm,
But I don't know any Japanese people, so that's
likewise.
probably never gonna happen. Um,
I mean, you got your hookup right here, so.
okay.
Well,
Um,
we'll talk after the show.
yeah. But this was a very insightful show. I learned a lot. I like talking through, I always feel like sex and sexuality is a topic that is fun to talk about,
Mhm.
especially among other consenting people, with other consenting people, uh, because you learn a lot about how other people view sex and sexuality, where you line up with them, where you differ. For
Mhm.
instance, today we talked about how we use the word dating
Mhm.
and how the different people use dating, and I feel like that's my experience with sexuality as well. Like people have different views about what even counts as sex.
Yeah,
So, I feel like we should make a podcast specifically about that, but
we could work
maybe
on
one
it.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Amaranth, now is a chance for you to plug anything you want to plug. Any you want people to talk to you or
um,
anything like
Any
that.
businesses you have?
Yeah.
yeah. I guess I don't really have anything huge to plug right now.
Mm,
My social media presence has kind of dwindled in the
mhm,
past few years. I am kind of on a food journey.
mm,
So that's what I'm using my Instagram right now
mm,
for. So I'm Emerald13 on um, IG if anybody wants to give me some support on that. I just basically post what I am having for dinner that night. And
That is so 2008.
it definitely is, but you know what? It's very helpful for me. Um, I like to see that, people are like, "Oh, that looks good," and
Yeah, yeah.
keep cooking and
Hmm.
things like that. So it's a good way to get back into a nice habit of, cooking for myself.
Maybe you could do a cooking type YouTube channel or something like that, or shorts on Instagram about cooking.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
I've definitely thought about it, like, and just set up a little camera and,
Hmm.
watch me cook
You
and
ain't gotta do the whole thing, just do the step by step.
yeah.
Yeah.
You think
But
that would
oh, good.
take a lot of editing, though?
Hmm.
You think that would require a lot of editing?
Well, if you just show like you're making tomatoes, you show the tomato, make a cut, now you cut back, the tomatoes already cut. Like you just doing like snapshots of the food
Yeah,
as
Okay,
you cook it. Yeah,
got it.
yeah. Could be very quick things.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for
Sorry for
us,
cutting you off.
nah,
Let
it's
her
all good.
finish. I don't think she was done. I cut her off.
Oh,
Oh no, that's basically it. Yeah.
Okay.
Um
Let me follow you right now.
okay.
so we had a small hiatus here on the channel because life got crazy, but we're back with regular uploads again. We're still available wherever podcasts can be found, except for Pandora for some reason. But you can find us there, Rabbit Hole Roundtable Talks. We have about 8 episodes up in audio format and almost 100 videos on YouTube right now. So we're trying to do our thing here, and we'll be back again, not in 2 weeks because we want to take a break for the holidays. So in 4 weeks. Is that fine, Mino?
Yep, fine with me.
In 4 weeks, we'll be back talking about something. Who knows? It's a lot of time.
Who knows?
Yeah,
We'll go down the rabbit hole.
as
That's
usual.
all we know for sure.
All right, guys. It's been great. I had lots of fun. I'll talk to you guys later.
Bye
Peace.
bye.